Ahoy! It's your buddy Hambone here, and I'm back again with a brand new coupon code from our friends over at Noble Knight Games. This month, the code is Arcana, and it's a long one. It's running from now all the way through September 14th, and it's good for 10% off orders of $10 or more, online or in person. Arcana is the code. And let's face it, everybody, it's summertime. It's fun time. It's time to get back together with your friends and family, maybe do some grilling and chilling and ripping some board games or tabletop RPGs. And for all your tabletop RPGs, board games, dice, and Magic the Gathering needs, look no further than Noble Knight Games. Noble Knight also has a killer trading program, so if you need to free up a little space on your shelf and add a little cash to your wallet so you can buy more games, Noble Knight is where it's at. And there's more details on that on their website. In the meantime, the code is Arcana, good from now all the way through September 14th from our friends over at Noble Knight Games.
This is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. He's never actually lost anything because he keeps it so neat and cataloged, Stu Horvath.
Dude, I have a spreadsheet now of my collection, and every time I look at it, I'm a little sad about what I've become.
No, I mean, it's not hoarding if you catalog everything.
Yeah, it became important now that I can't contain everything in the clubhouse, and there's boxes in the loft attic above my mom's apartment. Knowing what's in those boxes and being able to flag it on a spreadsheet is good finding guide, as my archivist librarian wife would call it.
Yeah, like I live in like a 340 square foot apartment, maybe even smaller than that. And I have trouble finding stuff or remembering where I put stuff. So the fact that with your extensive, and I want to say maybe even massive, it's no hyperbole, folks, it is a lot, collection of RPG bric-a-brac and books, you know where everything is at all times. And I respect the hell out of that. With that being said, Stu, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about NECA, the toy producer, made some new old D&D toys. What?
I love it so much. I love it.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit a while back when I was anticipating getting them, and now I've gotten them. And, I got new toys, so I got to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, NECA makes quality stuff. So when I heard that they were going to make a updated version and release, I guess, some of the characters that never got released of the classic Dungeons and Dragons toy line, I was pumped.
I'm a different level of excited for the line of, like, I guess they're 7-inch new reinterpretations of old figures starring in the first wave War Duke and Grimsword. They're coming out later in the year, and I'm sure we'll do a podcast about them.
Got to give the Duke his due.
Exactly. These are a little bit different from those in that these are consciously retro, and they're called the Lost Wave because they were all figures that were sort of on the schedule to be part of the final wave, what wound up being the final wave of LJN D&D toys back in the 80s. For reasons that we do not know, or I do not know anyway. I would love to find out if you worked at LJN or know somebody who worked at LJN and would like to talk about this. Give me a ring, because I would be fascinated to learn some of the answers of burning questions I have about this toy line.
Hey, man, inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah. So there's sort of a range of things here. Valkeer the Barbarian. We saw pictures of him in a catalog. He was also on a card fighting the fire giant. So when you bought the fire giant, there's an illustration of him fighting a barbarian. That's Valkyr. And we have pictures of him that are vintage. And there was a sculpt of him. There was a prototype made. Friends of mine got one of the prototypes a couple years ago and made resin casts of them. I have one of them. So the one I was probably most excited to get was in the Lost Wave was the Valkyr, which is basically, it is that casting, that prototype just produced. It is basically a toy from 1984, never produced, being produced now for the Lost Wave NECA. It looks great. Paint job is perfect. He's got the same character and vibe as the original toys because he is one of the original toys.
And that's very cool because, when you have a newer toy company, even when they're a great toy company, making retro style figures, it is always a challenge to make them modern and better articulated or better built, but still be able to fit in seamlessly with the rest of your collection, because you don't want it to look like, well, I clearly got that one in like 2022, but here's my special guy from 1982. So being able to slot them in seamlessly with your collection, I think, is no small feat.
The downside of including Valkyr in this set of figures is that it sort of does kind of shine a spotlight on the newness of the other three that make up the set. Valkyr has some quality of age to him that sets him apart from the other three. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but I'm confident that if I could tell. I could tell that these are not historical sculpts. There's just something about them that I know that they are new. They are very, very close, though. So the second most close is the variant Kellek, who's the sorcerer, the evil sorcerer. Basically, at a glance, he looks the same in the package because he has a robe on and he comes with the same accessories. He does have a mohawk, which is an interesting choice.
That's a flex.
And he seems a little portlier. If you remove the robe, as I have, you'll see that he has like a purple and red outfit and he's covered in lizards. This is not unknown. Like we've seen pictures of this. There were prototypes of this, and this is very, very, very close to the prototypes that I've seen. Although I believe that this is a modern sculpt based on the original prototypes.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you posted the pictures in the Discord, in the mail chat, and you did it without the Kellek robes on it, I was like, oh, I didn't know they made a fifth character. Like, it was completely foreign to me that was Kellek. One, because of the mohawk. Two, and I'm not trying to fat shame here because I'm a thick boy myself. Kellek was thick. He was very, he was husky. And I was like, wow, he's tough looking.
He definitely has like an evil Santa vibe.
He really does, dude. And it's like, I saw him and I'm like, oh, this must be like another rogue, because he looks like a rogue. Yeah. And then I saw the staff and I was like, but that's kind of confusing because, he looks a little too tough to be a wizard in this current wave.
He does look tough. He looks like a biker, which is kind of cool.
Like he could be a dreadnought.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally on that same vibe. It's the mohawk. It's a close crop mohawk. So it's like, yeah, he looks like an Australian biker, which is a dreadnought.
Right. Like he definitely just got out of jail. That's a man who's done some time, at least a nickel for something nefarious.
Yeah, I agree. And he's cool. Like, because this design harkens back so closely to the 80s. I just don't I don't really understand what they were thinking. I like what they came up with. The color scheme is so weird. Like, everything about the figure is really strange. But then if you look at all those LJN figures, they're all pretty strange. Having recently finished my collection of the LJN, the original releases, like some of those last ones that got release are really kind of weird. Like Deeth is like this like lady fighter, but like nothing special about her. And Hawkler looks like a GI Joe. Not even a GI Joe, like a knockoff GI Joe that you would get like at the dollar store. So not a D&D vibe. So the fact that like these guys got shelved is really strange to me. Anyway, the third, and we're going to go out of order in terms of like historical order, because the Skyla, or some people like, it's a play on Scylla, the monster from Greek myth, which I'm not sure I've ever, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing that right. Scylla, or was she always Skyla?
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah. Anyway, she's an evil sorceress. She has a pet raven, a whole bunch of knives, which I always appreciate when characters got a ton of knives, and a staff. She's super cool design. As far as I know, existed only in illustration and as one of the PVC miniatures. But I always thought she was cool. She's got silver hair and like she wears a horn skull on her head. She always just had a really good vibe. There weren't enough women characters in this line. So like the fact that she was such a cool design and was never produced always kind of bummed me out. Really, the originals, it's Deeth, and who doesn't look like a woman at all, just like a suit of armor. And then Mercion, the priest, cleric, I guess, back in the day, were the only two women figures. Skyla is a nice addition to it. She's got a cloth robe here. She looks basically like I expect. She's just a great little figure. Cool character. She's got a little bit of the Bavmorda vibe.
Love it.
Yeah, you can't go wrong, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from like the 80s standpoint of like, the ratio between female figures and male figures in a line, I think it was like 1-7. Like for every 7 or maybe even like 1-12 male figures, you would get like a Scarlet or a Tila.
Yeah.
They made them, but like I feel like it was begrudgingly and only, sporadically throughout an entire run. I look back at like G.I. Joe and like off the top of my head, not counting variations of the characters, you had Scarlet, you had Baroness, you had CoverGirl, you had Lady J, you had Jinx. And I think that is it.
And honestly, I had forgotten about Jinx.
Right. But that's 5 for, and again, people who are like serious Joe collectors right now are probably shaking their fists angrily at me. But, for the most part, I don't feel like I'm way off base. I mean, there was hundreds of dude figures, but there was just 5 women. Or it goes to show how sporadically they made women characters in G.I. Joe that I could rattle off what I think is the complete set of them off the top of my head.
Right. Yeah. Even if you're wrong, you're right. And the same is true of the D&D line. So anyway, the last figure is, I think, maybe my favorite of the 4. It's Pulvereye, the Cyclops warrior. He's one of the big fellas. He's a big boy. He's like, I don't know, 4 inches. I got a tape measure right here. Let's measure him.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Let's see. He is 6 inches. Wow. That's what 6 inches looks like.
What? Oh, anyway, go on.
Yeah. I always love the size disparity in this line. I think that's one of the things that makes it special. The fact that, like He-Man, most of those characters, those toys have shared parts. A lot of the torsos, a lot of the arms, a lot of the legs, where possible, were the same, just different colorways, cut down on production costs. That is not true of the LJN line. Almost all of the various bits that make up the characters are unique. And there's a lot of sizing that makes characters even more unique, like Melf the Elf and I can't remember the name of the Longhorn, the dwarf. They're very small, strangely proportioned action figures. The same is true of the giants. You got Titan, the fire giant, and Mandoom, the gladiator, who is like a giant for reasons I don't know. And Northlord the Barbarian is also like just a human, but he's huge. And then now Pulvereye, who's a Cyclops. Great color scheme. He's got like a spider theme. So he's got spiders crawling all over him. His shield. He was originally designed as a shield shooter. The shield has like an emblem that would shoot out. Weird thing is that the vintage characters who have shield shooters, you could lock the emblem in and then you would tap it in the back and it would fire out on a spring mechanism. This is just like a pullback and fire kind of thing. So you can actually take the spider off the post, and he has a big, I was going to say he has a little spider friend, but the spider is about the size of MILF.
Damn, that's a big spider, bro.
Yeah, pretty big spider. There are pictures of Pulvereye that the color scheme and the basic design is similar, but this is a far superior sculpt. He's got a pull-off helmet. He basically, his head looks like Jeff D's illustration of Grumpsh, the orcish god of war from Deities and Demigods.
That's awesome. Also, I just remembered Zorana, the Dreadnought. Yeah, the sister. Yeah. So six female characters in the entire run.
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying about like the different sculpts and the different sizes, one of the things that I think was great for He-Man was that, I mean, from a money standpoint for like, Mattel, was that like most of the bodies were all the same body. Like it was rare that you'd have to stray from that. The same thing when you look at like a line like Superpowers, where except for like except the villain characters all had different body types, but all the hero characters had the same exact body type.
Yeah.
I think that, and again, it's wildly speculative, but, looking at other successful toy lines through the years, how every character per se is a variation on a theme with the same body type. I'd imagine it had to be not very cost effective to have so many different variations per character. Not even like, over a few characters, it was like, everyone had a different head sculpt. Everyone had a different body type. Everybody had like different accessories. So, and multiple accessories. It wasn't like, okay, they have one thing. It's like, well, this one has a shooting shield. Well, this guy has like a sword. He's got a bow and arrow, and he's got an eagle, and he's got a cape. Like, if the toy line wasn't very successful, it feels like in the 80s, it would have been like unsustainable for a company to be like, okay, we got to keep putting this stuff out. I mean, we're lucky we got the Fortress of Fang and Tiamat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the Hawkler figure is ridiculous. Aside of the fact that it looks like a Kmart knockoff, like the accessories, you're right. He comes with a hawk. He comes with a knife. He comes with a belt. He comes with a bow. He comes with a quiver of arrows. He can't carry all of that stuff. Like the figure can't carry. And they do that with Skyla too.
Huh. Even the figures had encumbrance rules.
Yeah. Same thing with Skyla, this new Skyla. And I almost thought like it was a winking joke for me because she's got 3 different daggers plus the raven that clips to her hand and her staff, and maybe something that I'm forgetting, and the belt that she's wearing and her robe. Like, it's just the amount of like kit that she comes with is ridiculous for an action figure then and now. I feel like you don't get like, yeah, those Conan ones from Super 7, like those are like collector, like adult toys, right? Like they're not toys. These are toys. I feel like, even though they are collector toys, but the design philosophy is more in line with old school toy manufacture. I think they're not like intended to be display pieces. So you have all these accessories, and it's cool. I love it. I love them. They're great.
Yeah, man. And I love them, especially when I look at them on your shelves, because you do have the full collection of the characters. So my final thought is, do you think that maybe they could possibly make more, or if they have this like totally sweet licensing to do these LJN figures, that they could like produce the unproduced bad guy base?
I sure hope so. These were produced for San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. I don't know if that is just like, is that a testing the waters kind of thing? Is that just like a special thing that is a one-off? Like, I don't know. I don't follow toy manufacturing and like that scene. So I don't know what we should read into that approach. There are other unproduced figures. There's like an evil thief. There's a gnome illusionist who is fantastic. There's another woman priest. She's evil. There's a whole bunch of more villains that never got made that we have drawings of, and all of them would make cool figures. And I would love the playset. I think the playset, well, I think the playset is maybe more of a chance than not, but I time will tell. And like I said, I don't have any real experience sort of like predicting the toy market. I'm shocked that they made these. This feels like such an impossibility made real. There's something miraculous about these toys seeing the light of the day. I look at them and they just seem like an impossibility. The fact that they did this, like, thank you. It's just a bright ray of sunshine.
What a time to be alive.
Right?
Well, this was another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG podcast. Stu, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. We will have pictures of these fine men and women up, and Cyclopses up eventually at some point. I promise.
Cyclopses. It's just fun to say. I love it. I had to do a description for a thing the other day, and I made something so it could just have Bombay doors, because I just think it's fun to say Bombay doors. Anyway, you can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG, on the Twitter, on the Instagram, and on the TikTok. I've been posting more lately because I always have things to promote. If you want to grab anything from 3, 2, 1 action, begin down to Exalted Funeral, because Exalted Funeral is where we get all our delicious and amazing RPGs all the time. Now, if you like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. We have behind the scenes look at 3, 2, 1 action. We got a behind the scenes look at Stu's book, Monsters, Aliens, and Holes in the Ground, a guide to tabletop role-playing games from D&D to Mothership, by Stu Horvath. Just delivered the full-on manuscript to MIT Press, coming in 2023.
And
how
boy,
cool
are
is
my
that?
arms tired.
Oh my God. Yeah, you got to be tired. How many pages is it?
432.
Good for you, man.
Not
Congratulations.
counting the index.
Not counting the index.
Not counting the index. We have an index. It's just not made yet.
Jesus.
Somebody else has to do that. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's got to be someone else's problem. But dude, congratulations. I know it's been a long road to get here. I'm
Thank
very
you, man.
proud of you, and I'm very excited for you. And if you are excited too, there's a behind the scenes look at it on our Patreon. We have early release episodes. We got a killer Discord community that we'd love for you to be a part of. We're running games for the patrons. I'm halfway through a DCC game. I'm going to be running some horror stuff in the month of October. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe because your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.